Come be a part of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics with your host, Dr. Ed Holliday. Hear the voices of liberty speaking all across America. Doc Holliday provides thought-provoking interviews and commentary about the issues and actions that are afflicting this country and what we need to do to get America back on track. Get fired up, get inspired, get on board with Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right now.
And here we go.
Once again, you got Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right here on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Holliday, and you're listening to us right here on webtalkradio.net. Listen, I hope you had a great Easter. And Easter is the time of miracles. So we know it's spring, life comes out. We know the celebration of Easter for Christians, involves Jesus being put in the tomb after he's crucified, and after 3 days he rose again. So that's a time of miracles, and we need miracles now in today's world. And can we wait to November to get an election a miracle? I don't know, but this show for this week is we are 6 months from the midterm elections, 6 months from the 2022 elections, and so much has been just turned upside down by Joe Biden and this administration. I mean, the only person in the Democrat Party who is smiling now is Jimmy Carter. Now, why would Jimmy Carter be smiling? Well, he's in his 90s, in his mid-90s just about. And he's smiling because he'll know he won't go down as the worst president in American history. Joe Biden is running away with that award, the worst president in the history of the United States of America. And how do you get there? Everything from his debacle of Afghanistan. There was no inflation worries in this nation, even after a year of the pandemic under Donald J. Trump. Where did the inflation come from? It came when Biden was elected, and then when he assumed the inauguration day. Before that, the oil companies and the energy companies, they already knew. Biden had said, I am going against you. I'm going to tear you down. I'm going to destroy you. And even then, they started backing off. So that way we can't just up and drill for oil. We don't have the mechanisms in place. We could get them there quick if Biden would give them some long-term hope, but he doesn't. And they know that. They know that Joe Biden's policies and these radical socialist Democrats who are in charge, they don't want the oil and gas people to be able to profit, to be able to hire people, to be able to plan 5 years ahead. They don't want that. Even last week, where Joe Biden went to Iowa, and you notice as he was speaking, a bird dropped a message on his coat, and you heard a big plump. And yes, the bird gave a message of what the American people want to do. And so many of them, Joe Biden, he was there to say he was going to lift a mandate and let during the summer, people can use E15 gasoline. And it's more in the Midwest. It's where they can put 15% ethanol in the gasoline. And you think that's going to help with our energy crisis? No, it's not. It's one of those window dressing things. It's not going to help the American people. It'll make some of the environmentalists upset. And that's the way, again, Barack Obama did that. Now Joe Biden's doing it. They pick a little thing that won't make a lot of difference. And they give the appearance they're making the left-wingers, the far left-wingers mad. And they try to make them look like they're moderates because they're making these way-out left-wingers mad. Well, I mean, Joe Biden, we're not buying that. You are so left-wing. He said he ran as a moderate, and he promised to be a moderate. He's been anything but moderate. He's done everything to destroy the infrastructure of America's energy. He's done everything to push everything to the left, everything from the Hyde Amendment. He buried that, didn't even look at it after he believed in it for most of his life. But he has done everything to get in the good graces of AOC, Bernie Sanders, because he knows they sort of cheated Bernie Sanders out, and he feels guilty on that probably. But Joe Biden's entire inflation chaos is coming from his following the leftist agenda. And there's so much there. Where do you go? In a minute, I'm going to play a clip off Newsmax. They had a panel speaking about what would be good for how to bring inflation down, how to turn this country around, and what's going on with the Russian and Ukraine war. I'll play that in just a minute. But let me just say, we are 6 months from the midterm elections, and Biden's poll numbers going off, just sinking. And of course, MSNBC, NBC, everybody's saying, well, they just don't understand what Joe Biden has done for this country. No, people do know what Joe Biden has done for this country. He's raised the gas prices, and it did not start with Vladimir Putin. That's just a little bit of icing on the big plate of poo-poo. That's about what it is. It's the same thing that bird dropped on President Biden's coat. That's what we got, a big old platter of poo-poo, and it's called high inflation, and it's destroying the little people. It's destroying the little businesses. It's destroying everything from banks, the little banks, what the Democrats and what the socialists tie into. They want the big companies, the big banks on Wall Street, the big tech companies. They want them to proliferate, and they make more and more mandates and regulations, and these big companies can absorb the hits, but they know the little companies can't, so they get swallowed up. And then the little communities, the little towns get hollowed out, and more people go into the big cities where the Democrats know they have control, and they want people in the big cities. No matter what the chaos is, no matter what the crime rate, they want people in the cities because they have the Democrat control over all the big cities in the United States of America. Just about every one of them under Democrat control. And listen, 6 months from now, there's going to be a midterm election, and Republicans could still mess this up. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Who would have said Putin would have gone in to invade the Ukraine? Very few people thought he really would. And now we're in the middle of a terrible war. The Ukrainians are putting up such a heroic fight, and they need weapons. And Joe Biden's getting some, but the things they really need, Joe Biden's he's backing down from that. He's not giving them the planes. He's not giving them the things that could actually be offensive and push the Russians out of the Ukraine. At least not yet. Wow, there's so much to talk about when you talk about midterm elections. But let me play this clip I told you about from Newsmax, just a minute or two here of what this one fellow thinks America needs for what Joe Biden ought to do. Take a listen.
Summer to skip some events. They can do those things, and they're doing those things. But in terms of the one economic policy that can have a salutary effect, it would be for Jay Powell to call an emergency meeting of the Fed board, and at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, raise interest rates a full percentage point. The stock market be damned. The stock market's much better off 2 years from now if we bring this thing under control. Then next month, do the same thing. And every month, do it until the economy hits the skids, the excess demand goes away, and the rack of the inflation is broken. The second thing is we have to bring this war to an end. So Putin has to stop being as behind the curve on weapons to the Ukraine as Jay Powell is on interest rates. He has to properly equip the Ukrainians so we can finally put an end to Vladimir Putin. In particular, hold on. In particular, he needs to start giving them intelligence on sites inside of Russia and the weapons to hit them. I mean, what good does it do for those poor people to pay defense if they can't take out a Russian city or a Russian oligarch or what have you? They have to bring the hell to Russia. If you do that, then the inflation goes away.
Okay. All right. Well, Peter, we have a plan. That's all I wanted. Just a plan.
Interest rates
Thank you.
and jet fighters.
Thank you. All right. I like it.
Well, that was someone who had a lot of news for Joe Biden. Now, he may be pushing us more to World War III, but we have a commander-in-chief. He has to listen to over 100 senators, 435 House of Representatives, and then all the Pentagon generals, officials, telling him what we can do, what we must do. And that's the scary thing when you look him in the eye and he's got that far-off look and you think, are you really there, Joe? Joe, do you really know what you're doing? Joe, can you make decisions? And he's the one. He says the buck stops here, and that's what worries me. The buck stops at Joe Biden. And if he can't figure out, does he get help from Kamala Harris? That scares me even worse. And there's old thing going around it. Those who remember when President Nixon was having troubles, he said his insurance card was Spiro Agnew. Spiro Agnew was his vice president, who was horrible. But Agnew finally had to resign the vice presidency, and then Nixon didn't have his insurance card because Nixon ended up having to resign, and Gerald Ford became president. But that was what he would say was his insurance card was Spiro T. Agnew, and because nobody wants Spiro Agnew in the president's office, Republicans or Democrats. But now we're looking at Kamala Harris. She's the same way, the Democrats and Republicans. Nobody wants her in the White House because, she cackled on a serious question on the world stage. She shows she's not ready for the job. She has no experience on world affairs. And you think, well, that's what she's doing. She's trying to gain experience, but she's failing. And it shows that not whoever her consultants are, whoever's supposed to get her ready, well, they keep leaving because of the work environment, evidently. But let me just say, the midterm elections are coming up, 6 months away. There's a lot of primaries that are underway. Some have already happened, many more in the future, but the Republican Party needs to get behind some dedicated PowerPoints and just keep it simple and make sure we stand. And when I say we, I mean conservatives working with the Republicans. They have to stand up for the parents and give the parental rights, just like DeSantis said down in Florida, just like DeSantis is standing strong for parents against this left-wing gender fluidity ideology that they want to teach to kindergartens, first graders, second graders, when you don't give a young child a suitcase that weighs 100 pounds and says, carry your weight. It weighs twice as much as they do, 3 times as much in some cases. And then you can't tell them to lift that suitcase. They are not ready. I don't think anybody should have to listen to so much nonsense that's going on. But for kindergartners, first and second graders, come on. Protect our children. Give them an innocent childhood. Protect them. Republicans and Democrats, it should not be any kind of political football. But the Democrats are refusing to back down. And the Democrats who oppose this, pushing this ideology on our 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, they're not speaking out. And if they refuse to speak out and refuse to tell their Democratic leaders to stop this nonsense, then it will be a political question, and it will be a part of the red wave coming November of 2022. And I predict if the Democrats still push this ideology to our 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds without any parents helping out, I believe we're going to have parents and grandparents of all skin colors voting to make that red wave bigger and bigger. Listen, you listen to Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics right here on webtalkradio.net. And I just want to say it's good to have each and every one of you listening. And because elections are coming up, tell people about the show. That's how we grow. You just tell your friends and neighbors about Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. We do have a book called Bedrock Truths. You can get that book by going to www.docholliday.org. Holliday's got 2 L's in it. Now, I just want to tell you about that. We'd love to get that book out to you if you'd like it. And we've got some other books you can take a look at. But listen, I just want you to understand, this is not an election anybody can sit out. This could be a transformational election. We need more than a red wave. We need a red tidal wave. We need the Democrats who hang on by the skin of their teeth to get reelected. We need to let them know they are taking this country in the wrong direction, and they better get their policies turned around. Now, Bill Clinton did that in 1994. And Barack Obama had his wings clipped in 2010. But the people who are in charge of Joe Biden, I don't think they're going to back down. And Joe Biden doesn't know how to back down because they don't even know where he is, I don't think, in so many cases. So, listen, as I said, miracles still happen. And we talk about the Easter miracle. And you think, what can you do? Well, sometimes it does take a walk of faith, a step of faith. So get involved in your communities. Get involved in some elections. It may be a primary, and if your candidate doesn't win the primary, do not back off. Make sure the Republicans are lifted up. Make sure the conservatives are lifted up. And like I said, I've mentioned on this show before, you look at the Senate race in Vermont. There is a Republican running who is not as conservative as I would like to see her. I believe Miss Nolan up there, U.S. Attorney, has been. And listen, we need to get her elected. We need to get every Republican up there we can. I'd rather have half her votes than zero votes from another socialist like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is from Vermont. But if the people up there want to elect another Republican, even though she may be moderate, we just don't have the ability now. We are so close to full-blown socialism. We have got to work with everybody. I don't care if you have to hold your nose to vote for somebody that may be in your state for your election, but we cannot allow Chuck Schumer to control what comes up to vote in the Senate. Remember what happened when Scalia on the Supreme Court passed away unexpectedly? If Mitch McConnell and Republicans were not in charge, then we'd have our Attorney General, Mr. Garland, on the Supreme Court now. And he's been such a horrible Attorney General, I would hate to see him on a lifetime appointment on the Supreme Court. But that's why it's so important. If you can't get enthused about a certain candidate because of where you live, it is time. We must make sure that we work together to make the biggest red wave, the biggest impact on this nation that a midterm election has ever had. Hey, we're going to finish it up this week. Next week, come back. We got more talking about this serious inflation, economics, and talk more about the elections coming up. We'll be looking at some candidates soon enough. So listen, go out there, enjoy your spring, and get ready to work hard for the biggest red wave this country has ever seen in a midterm election. Hey, God bless. See you next week.
Thanks for joining us today, and remember to listen again next week for another edition of Doc Holliday's Rock Splitting Politics. You can order Ed's new book, Bedrock Truths, by clicking on the book cover right in front of you on the screen, or visit docholliday.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.